constitutional amendment is restoration of term limits. We've spoken about that variously. It's something that I think has bedeviled this nation. Term limits were the minimum consensus of the 95 Constitution. Remember, the predicate of that Constitution was to give this country a chance for the very first time in our history to change leadership through a free and fair process. Because the major failure of the 1967 Constitution was failure to enable the country to transition, to organize free and fair elections, transition from one leader to another. That never happened. So the promise of the 95 Constitution was the possibility of a change through a free and fair election. When that failed, and in 2006, we amended the Constitution and removed term limits, that in effect killed that motivation. It killed the basic structure of that Constitution, and therefore, in my view, as a lawyer and as a politician, from that day we got a new Constitution, which is why it needs a major surgery to restore that promise and give the nation hope that we can actually change leadership. Otherwise, fistful funds for power is impossible. And in 2018, again, we tinkered with the Constitution and removed another pillar, which was the age limit. So for me, we need to restore term limits and even entrench them, not just restore, but entrench them. Because the article that had them was fair weather, Article 105. Now we need to restore them and then even entrench them. The second area I'm looking at in amending the Constitution that will cause amendment to the Presidential Elections Act, the Parliamentary Elections Act, the Electoral Commissions Act, will be in the area. I'm introducing an idea to have a second tier of Parliament, the upper house. And the upper house will be chaired by a deputy president, who in my proposal will be on the ballot with the president. The idea of a president simply appointing a vice president to attend the funerals must stop. We must have a constitutional provision for a deputy president elected on the same day with the president. And I'm proposing the president and the deputy should not come from the same region. We'll chair the upper house, and the upper house, like I'll propose later in detail, will have only 39 members from the original 39 districts before the making of the 95 Constitution. I'll make provision for their purpose and role for the country. Then most importantly, and probably dicey, is reducing the size of Parliament. We're among a Bani forest where it is domiciled. I'm looking at the bigger picture. I'm a Ugandan, desirous of seeing this country transition and move to a better place. The size of Parliament over time has been a major concern for all and sundry, including politicians who care. I am proposing that instead of having county MPs, we shall have a directly elected member of Parliament for each district. Can be a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. So currently you'll have only 146 directly elected members of Parliament. Okay? Then we shall retain the women members of Parliament. So then you'll have 146 plus 146 plus 10 from the cities. But also I'm proposing that the women members of Parliament should be elected by proportional representation. I'm going to put all these ideas in writing and you'll be able to read them and explain to the country. I want us to test the idea of having Parliament in a hybrid manner, whereas the direct seats from the district to be elected by universal adult suffrage, the way we do it now, first past the post. For women MPs, I want us to test proportional representation, where for every party that has gotten a vote and in parliament, they will have a chance to have a woman MP in parliament. If you are NUP and you get 50% of the national vote, you should have 50% of the women in parliament. If you are JEMA and you get 10%, I'm not saying JEMA is worth 10%, don't get me wrong. They should have 10% of women in parliament. That is the idea of national building that you even introduce through legislation, power sharing in parliament. Because the idea of winner takes all disenfranchises politics, makes it a game of eaters, a game of the powerful, but even more representative of the political views in the country. So that is my proposal on parliament. So for the constitution, there are other ideas I cannot speak about now, they are lengthy, but that's what I will do. There will be amendments. I'm also proposing amendments subsequently, because of the constitutional amendments, to the Presidential Elections Act to take care of the issues that will arise from amending the Constitution. But maybe, very critical, in the Presidential Elections Act, I want us to amend two critical areas. One, in amending the, remember in 2018, we made an amendment to the Constitution to say that if a candidate is aggrieved after a presidential election, they can go to court. And we enlarge the time available for the candidate to go to court. Okay? Of course, we reduce the appetite of having very little time, and therefore the impossibility of getting to court prepared by enlarging the time available. Now, if you want to take care of the malfeasance that comes with, for example, arresting a candidate, remember the Honorable Kyagulanyi was held indoors under house arrest when he was supposed to go to court. Dr. Besigye in 2016 was held at his residence, was supposed to petition. I want us to amend the Constitution further and the Presidential Elections Act to say that even a registered voter can petition court, okay, such that the appetite to arrest or detain would-be complainants reduces. Of course, that will come with other issues. I'm proposing, for example, if you're a voter and you want to petition, you must do a security deposit to court, that you don't simply go to petition to waste court's time. Like it is done in our civil proceedings. So it will not be a new thing in our jurisprudence. That is for petitions. Then secondly, the declaration of results legislation. Right now, when you vote for the president, you see we vote the president and the members of parliament on the same day. In Masaka City, by 6 o'clock, you will have an MP declared, but no president is declared as having won Masaka. So I want us to change the law, because the same returning officer who declares members of parliament can also declare a winning president for a district. And that is closed and the certificate is issued. And what would remain is transmission of results electronically or otherwise to the national center. Meaning that if you're a candidate for president, you don't have to have heartache and ulcers over listening to results from Karamoja when the ones from Kawempe have not yet been read. All you have to collect are 146 DR forms of every district, and you'll know the results declared, probably plus the 10 from the cities. So the declaration of results component is problematic. I doubt anybody sane and sensible will reject that possibility, that we change that, such that, because you have a woman MP declared for the district, that same returning officer has all the results from the district for everybody, including the president. They should be declared there and then. That amendment should come. Then for the Elections Electoral Commission's Amendment Act, I said for all these, there will be a series of consequential amendments of other legislations. The Presidential Elections Act, Parliamentary Elections Act, and the Electoral Commission's Act. Two areas of concern for me to the Electoral Commission's Act. One is amending that act to make provision for diaspora voters. We have over 4 million Ugandans scattered across the diaspora, in estimate. And of the 4, close to 2 million are eligible of voting. I think Uganda has about 44, 45 embassies and missions scattered across. These should be polling centers. Remember, in 2021, the High Court decreed in a matter of Karari Stephen versus Attorney General and Electoral Commission. Justice Lydia Mugambe decreed that it was unconstitutional not to make provision for people in the diaspora to vote. She also decreed that it was also unconstitutional not to make provision for prisoners to vote. So I want to propose amendments to the Electoral Commission's Act to make way for the possibility of diaspora people and prisoners to vote. All that was missing is how would they vote? It's not new. They vote in Kenya, they vote in Zambia, they vote in South Africa, in so many other jurisdictions. So we should not be lazy. We should be proactive. It is their right to vote. For example, the people in the diaspora contribute more money through remittances to the country than Uganda's biggest export, which is coffee. So how do you disenfranchise a people that actually sustain the economy to that extent? So Parliament should rise to the occasion and proceed to make provision for the voting of diaspora people and prisoners. Yes, when you're in prison, certain rights are curtailed, but civic rights cannot be curtailed. There are those that can be curtailed. I'm aware that actually in some countries, even conjugal rights are made provision for. Let's begin with civic rights. For starters, the right to vote. So these are very key issues to which I want the country to begin a conversation and make a decision. I want to invite you, when I'm ready next week, I'll lay and share with the country these amendment bills. They may not come on the same day because it's rigorous work. It's rigorous work, it's vigorous. And in the event that Mr. Mao and others have their own bills, we shall meet in the Committee of Parliament and see what they have. There's no contradiction. The job of a member of Parliament, the first call for any member of Parliament is to make laws for the good governance of the country. And this is the call I'm here for. And I want to invite colleagues, members of Parliament, to join me in this call. And I hope from both sides of the House, we should be able to hear from each other and speak to each other about these possibilities. I thank you. Concerns. Mr. Sechung, about the DP block, endorsing me or whatever it means, I'll have this to say. First of all, I warmly appreciate the kindness of these my old comrades for believing that I am capable of being up there. It's not something I can apologize for. All I can say is that there are so many other Ugandans capable of offering leadership at a higher level. And my humble view is that let's first concentrate on creating an environment that makes it possible for leaders to emerge and compete favorably beyond the self-interest and our desires to be on the ballot paper. It should not be casual. It should not be really a ritual. It should be a serious endeavor. I appreciate them. I will encourage them when I meet them that we can put a lot of energy on these issues, make it possible for a change to happen. Then I have no doubt in my mind that we shall have an opportunity as the opposition, for example, to sit in a quorum like this and agree on our best foot forward and our best bet when time comes. That's what I can say about that. Qualifications for politicians, something I didn't talk about because I thought when I share with the public my written document, people will be able to see my expanded views on governance. One of the proposals for constitutional amendment is to activate the provisions in Schedule 5 of the Constitution that talks about regional governments. When you form regional governments, some of the questions that are raised at the center will go to the regions. What's wrong with the country not discussing a possibility of power sharing through advanced devolution? You can call it federalism, you can call it anything else. Once we devolve power from the center to the regions, because probably I will ask a question to the Minister of Local Government in Parliament. What happened to activating Schedule 5 in the Constitution that talks about regional governments? This can take care of some of the problems. I want people to go to their local regions and where possible, have a debate in their vernaculars. There's nothing wrong. And where issues, where documents have to be discussed or synthesized in a foreign language, they should be done. But I don't want to say that qualifications are the problem. Okay? Of course, if you are qualified, ordinarily, if you choose to do wrong, it's deliberate, because you know. You have seen professors fail to do mundane things. So, but I know Ugandans are capable, for example, of deciding, of electing who is capable of being in an upper chamber, in a council, district council, in a sub-county council. They know all that. I don't want to take away that right, because policies should create room for involvement and participation. And then if people are sensitized well, if the civic education and civic competence rises, then I have no doubt citizens won't put square pegs in round holes. They'll put people where they belong. The Mnyonyo conversation, and then majority of opposition don't want, do you have a census of the majority, my brother? No, I'm not referring to that. You said majority of the opposition don't want reforms. And others, do you have a census? Political leaders. Political leaders are various. Probably a few of us have a microphone to speak. But if you moved out there and spoke to political actors, they're desirous of these reforms. But I'm not blind to the frustration of the political leaders at a higher level. The frustration is obvious because we have had run-ins with the system, the unwillingness to climb down their high horse, to listen to citizens, to listen to their opponents. It's understandable. But tell me, so if you don't want to do this, so where do you want us to go? Are you for armed rebellion? Are you for civil disobedience? Then go for it. The one thing I will not do is simply look on and wait for somebody to come from nowhere and do what I don't know. In my space, I'm only doing what I know. And it's my job to speak convincingly, to speak to the other party, to see a bigger call for national building, I can't run scared that they won't listen. So why am I in parliament? If I'm convinced they cannot listen, so why am I here then? I should stay away. It's my daily duty to speak to people who don't want to listen to me, to compel them to listen to me by raising the bar of the issues, vacate the mundane issues, and then speak to the issues that can sustain our young democracy and give a possibility of a durable constitutional order. It's my job. Whether we believe they won't listen, probably. Because this conversation is not a conversation of politicians alone, and that's the danger. These issues are not issues of politicians alone. Civil society, cultural institutions, religious institutions, even witch doctors must participate in this conversation. This is the conversation of citizens for better governance. It's not a preserve all politicians. Politicians have a duty to lead. They have an obligation to be honest about possibilities. I'm only doing what I believe is feasible. Let the conversation ensue. Let's begin it. If somebody has a higher and better way and a shortcut, you didn't follow me well. The reference to the upper house is akin to a Senate. And the 146 times 2 is the ordinary parliament where I belong now. Okay? That would be the lower house. And if you have 146 from the districts, and then the 146 women, plus 10 or thereabout from the cities, that's almost, you get the 550 something we are, you'll make a saving over 200 MPs. In my proposal, I'm even offering a proposal on compensating those that will lose their seats or constituencies. I have a detailed proposal on how those that will surrender their constituencies will be compensated to leave and give way for the country to progress. It is a cost, but a cost, a one-off, and then we shall progress with a leaner and feasible parliament. In fact, in the Constitution, in the proposal in the Constitutional Amendment, I want the numbers to be entrenched in the Constitution. To say we shall have a lower house of 300 members of parliament, sealed. The danger is, every time you create a district, you enlarge parliament. Parliament should never be allowed to enlarge itself at will. There must be a limit, and that limit should be in the Constitution. With a seal, the numbers must be there. Right now, we don't have numbers. Look, if you go to the Kenyan Constitution, the Tanzanian Constitution, the numbers are right there. They say we shall have a house of these numbers. In Uganda, Parliament is about to become the biggest national rally. But between me and you guys are in the gallery, in the media gallery. I don't want to speak about colleagues, but how many register on the Hansard? So we can have a limit enshrined in the Constitution. That's my humble view, Vincent. And it is going to be a huge saving to this country if we do that. In the future, if the country's fortunes change economically, then a fresh conversation can ensue on how to enlarge representation. After all, modern constitutional governance evolves. With the changes in the fortunes of the country, we can have a fresher conversation as to the possibilities. You also talked about the runners-up. Yes, I'm making concrete proposals on what should be the fate of the runners-up. The runners-up in the presidential election should lead the opposition in parliament. It's a no-brainer, That will really help a great deal in dealing with a lot of tensions that arise from among parties, but also to allow this leader to come and implement the views in his or her manifesto in parliament and have them across. It's probably a better idea, because that mandate should have a platform. That mandate from the people should have a platform where it should be appreciated. We're talking about constitutions, not individuals. A constitution is like a shoe. If it doesn't fit you, don't remove the sole. If it doesn't fit you, don't remove the laces. Okay? okay? Once we have a document written, you subscribe, you commit. There's no shortcut. The individuals will always arise with different approaches, but all we need is something durable and dependable to say, you have a deputy president, you cannot fire him or her at will, you know, because there is, she or he was on a ballot with you, and therefore you must see, politicians must learn to compromise with each other to work, because you are not working for yourself, but for the country. That's the whole idea. But also, in the proposals, I'll have a prime minister who is an actual leader of government business. I'm using the word actual, with purpose. If you're the prime minister and you come to parliament and you're able to commit because you're the leader of government business. I'm even proposing that the prime minister should face a no confidence vote in the House if he fails to execute their mandate, the way it is done in modern democracies. Problem with many political actors, they don't want to think. They want to do basic things. We need to delve into some thinking of what we can do to change the fortunes of our politics and our country. If we have the diaspora vote and the prisoners, the ghosts, what? All these are meant to kill some ghosts. And a level of certain civic competence must arise. We cannot be scared of doing good because among us we have bad people. Let's have the law. Then we shall deal with the consequences of legislation. Because, again, we're dealing with the law and individuals. There's no law made to appease political gods. We are enacting a law to give the country a chance to move on a path of democracy and consistency with the possibility of transitioning regularly without raka. So that's what we're trying to do. And I'm talking about 2 million people. I am trying to get the actual census of prisoners because they grow every day with the political prisoners and, chicken thieves and rapists. So I'll have the census probably by the end of the week, and then you'll see how many other citizens are being disenfranchised by this. So there is no legal bar. And of course, the court has already given a pronouncement from the 2021 verdict of Justice Lydia Mugambe on the rights of prisoners to vote and the rights of the diaspora to vote. Uganda can't change leadership by elections. My sister, should we all live in fear? Uganda will change. It's our job to change it. Part of the quest to change it is by insisting that legislation should give a possibility of change. My introduction to politics was not by violence. I don't believe in violence. I believe in civil politics. That's what I know. I'm not trying to enact a kind of military war act. No. I'm trying to enact, to make proposals for a democratic order. And I have no doubt in my mind that we have tested as a nation the consequences of a stolen election and what it heralds for the future. I believe with the time, we're going to have much more people demanding for free and fair elections. And the best way of dealing with this is giving them a law on which they will lean to make these demands. So let's make the law. We shall deal with election thieves, when that time comes. Age limit, in the proposals to restore the pillars of the 95 Constitution, it's not really something I'm preoccupied with. So once you have term limits, age becomes a no-brainer. At the making of the 95 Constitution, the thinking was that, you see, you have a president, a head of state, a commander-in-chief, okay, and a head of government. The predicate was that all these powers in one person, even if you are so terrible, the maker thought that at least you last only 2 terms. It was never envisaged that anybody would last all this long, and by the time of their tenure, they would have appointed every justice of the higher courts of record. It never was envisaged. So now we are at this. So if we restore that critical pillar of term limit, then you can deal with the rest, including age. Because it should not be the problem. The problem is an individual entrenching oneself with a glue in the presidency and makes it an impossibility for change to happen. That should be the preoccupation. Oh, a follow-up?
I would just like to get a view of the independence of the Electoral Commission, because in all this they are the main actors. And so how is this reform going to tackle?
I talked about the issues in Schedule 5. That's essentially the whole idea of power sharing, devolution, federalism, call it what. Because as we know, the whole idea of decentralization collapsed in our face. We're only lucky that it did not collapse us as individuals. Decentralization failed. It's a bad test, failed. Therefore, rethinking the governance structure, the governance model of the country is key. And I don't want to believe that it's only Buganda that wants that kind of arrangement. I am aware, I'm alive, so many other parts of this country that actually are desirous of having a component of self-determination in a number of issues. We just had a census, and the results of the census are very telling. And if we are such copycats that we love copying from our former colonial masters, I'll give an example. In Great Britain, an area like Scotland has barely 5 million people, but they have the Scotland Act. Wales, barely same number. They have the Wales Act, in which power is shared. And those regions deal with the particular matters specific to their environment, to take care of particular, matters of their own, inheritance, history, and take care of their people and their needs in a particular way. These proposals are here, and in our consultations, because after getting leave, then the consultations will ensue from across stakeholders. I'm very sure that the people of Bunyoro will want to have a piece of their wealth. I'm sure the people of Lango, the people of Acholi, everywhere, I'm very sure it's not an issue. But remember, don't forget that during the Odoch Commission that gave rise to the current constitution, over 67% of Ugandans wanted a federal system. So Buganda has, from the last census, close to 15 million people. Why wouldn't you give such a region particular powers to deal with particular matters? Look at the census results, and then you'll be shocked as to what we are missing as a people. And I believe you have Teso has about 3 million people, West Nile 3 million people, close to 4, Acholi 2, Ankole 3, Bunyoro 2, or thereabout. So there's a possibility. This should be a conversation among us as citizens as to how our power from the center can be decongested, shared resources, and possibilities across the regions. So an issue of interest, and it's going to be prominent in these amendments. Didas, again, on his things. Didas, we are not legislating for individuals and their preoccupations, Yeah. We don't want to be distracted by preoccupations. People have dreams. But between me and you, you know that some dreams are hallucinations. Okay? So I don't want to sit here and legislate for a hallucinator. Okay? So I don't want to really mix up things. I am sticking to an idea of making an enduring law that will midwife and take care of this great nation. Okay? Regardless of the hallucinations harbored by individuals. Independence of the EC. The EC is not a building. the ECR humans, they must be compelled. They will be compelled. First things first, can we have the legislation to which we shall demand of them to comply? Yes, they are. One of the biggest gaps is how they are appointed. Can I hasten to say that I've not taken care of everything you think about? That's very important. I've not taken care of everything. That's why after leave is granted, then Ugandans must be consulted. All stakeholders must be consulted. And in the consultations, you'll be shocked as to how many brilliant ideas people harbor as to how this country should be governed and how power should be exercised. Ça va?